Hello, peeps and peepertons. My name is 12 Gauge. Thank you for coming to my channel. This is your first time here. Welcome. I hope that you find something that keeps you coming back, something that keeps you interested in the true crime arena. Got off work a little early today, so I thought that I'd go ahead and do the live. I got some things planned for later on. Thank you for coming back and giving me the opportunity to continue to present these for you guys. Today we're going to talk about the Texas true crime of Jocelyn Nungaray, the 12-year-old who was brutally attacked, kidnapped, raped, and murdered. I'm going to give you the breakdown of the case, and then I'm going to show you some crime footage of where the actual event took place. So, trigger warning for anybody that doesn't want to see that. I totally understand it. So, let me go ahead and start this. I've done this video before, but I had to delete it due to the second part of it was copyrighted or something. So that's why I'm doing it again. Let me show you the video. Well, it'd help if I shared the screen, right? I'm not all up to date yet. Come on, 12 gauge.
Details in the murder of 12-year-old Jocelyn Nungaray, whose body was found in a Texas bayou just hours after she snuck out of her home. Investigators now say the suspects, undocumented migrants who allegedly sexually assaulted and strangled the preteen, were working to flee the country in the days following her murder.
We have gotten into Martinez Rangel's phone and found evidence that he was searching for ways to leave the country.
We're taking a closer look at the timeline leading up to Jocelyn's death and the intense investigation that followed.
And it seems like such a brutal offense. It's just a very, very heartbreaking type of case.
The case begins on Sunday, June 16th in Houston, Texas. At about 10 o'clock that night, 12-year-old Jocelyn and her 5-year-old brother went to bed. But about 2 hours later, around midnight, Jocelyn snuck out. Her body was found 6 hours after that in a shallow creek. Criminal defense attorney Mike Korbanek says the facts of this case are shocking.
It's such a horrific type of case if everything that proves that this is what occurred. The very fact that, it's a 12-year-old girl who's snuck out of her house and is met in a store by two people who are on release for being illegally in this country, and they're on release.
After Jocelyn's body was recovered, Houston officials retraced her steps and put together a timeline leading up to her murder. After she snuck out, Jocelyn was seen in the early morning hours of Monday, June 17th at a 7-Eleven convenience store with two men. Jocelyn's mother told investigators she did not recognize the men and believes Jocelyn didn't know them either.
I had such a bright future ahead of her, and I knew she was going to go very far. And, these monsters took that opportunity from her.
Texas officials say the men were first caught on security cam at a restaurant. At the time, they were seen without Jocelyn.
We have found and learned that the suspects began their evening at a Northborough area restaurant together. They left that restaurant on foot, southbound. The suspects continued south and were first seen on a camera.
But the next time they were caught on camera, Jocelyn was with them.
Suspects seen meeting the victim and talking for a few minutes while they were on Kirkendall. Later, the suspects and the victim walked together to a convenience store.
And I think the question on everyone's mind right now is why? Why did this happen? What would be the motive? This 12-year-old girl who's just going to 7-Eleven and then she ends up murdered. So how important is it for investigators to zero in on why this might have happened.
Well, it's extremely important because number one is they're going to want to find out what exactly was the relationship here. Was it? I mean, right now they're assuming it was not connected in any way. They randomly met in this store, but I think there has to be a little more investigation. And you just have to wonder what was going through the minds of these two men if they in fact performed these actions that caused her murder, as to why they did it, and how would you ever think that something like that is something you could get away with? And
That's just terrible to think about that. You could be walking to the store, and the next thing you know, you're confronted by two individuals who mean you harm. Well, this little girl was doing just that. She had snuck out of her house at about 11:30, and she was spotted on security cameras in front of this 7-Eleven. According to what I've done as far as research is concerned, these men were partying at a Old Locos bar on I-45, probably about 2.5 miles away north of this location. So what ended up happening is they were partying, and they started heading south towards Rankin Roads. Once they got to Rankin Roads, their apartments are off probably about 3 miles south of there. So they intersected with Jocelyn on Cockendale Road. And I don't know if she was trying to get away from them or she was just stopping in to get a drink at the 7-Eleven. But as you can tell, this individual is preying on her in this photo. Supposedly the men had asked her for directions. So why would you be asking a 12-year-old child for directions? So it looks here like she's texting somebody or she's trying to call somebody, and she's trying to get away from this individual. So what we're going to see later on is he follows her into the store. There's actually two of them. So I don't know where the other one is at this point.
It's also interesting because these gentlemen were about 10 years older than her. So it's not like it was something where it happened with a bunch of friends. Maybe they got drunk, high, whatever, and lost control of themselves. And it's going to be very interesting to see if they did any tests on the alleged defendants in this matter, who my understanding is now are being held incarcerated pending this case, especially since they were on release from immigration, as I understand, when this occurred. And you've got to wonder what they were thinking if they were here and on release, that something like this could be something you get away with.
During her trip to 7-Eleven, Jocelyn was on the phone with her 13-year-old boyfriend. He told police he overheard her speaking with the two men. Investigators are now revealing what the young boy may have overheard. These two men allegedly went up to this 12-year-old girl and asked her for directions. And in my mind, this jumps right back to when I was a kid, when they said stranger danger, if an adult you don't know reaches out about directions, turn the other way. So it's almost like these are stereotypical things that these two alleged suspects here are doing in order to get this little girl, lure her away from the 7-Eleven and away from all the security cameras in order to murder her. What do you make of all of that?
Well, that very well could be. And also the fact is that you have to wonder if they realized she was a 12-year-old child and that this 12-year-old child had no supervision when she was at the store.
You know, I said this the other day, and I'll say it again today. Look at this picture right here. How can you not realize that this is a 12-year-old girl? She had braces on. She's small-statured. She looks young. Even with makeup on right here, she still looks young. She's small-statured. and looks like a little girl. There's no way that you can mistake her for being a grown up.
And they figured we could do whatever we want. That would take a pretty sick mind to carry that out. But that very well could be what happened here.
Shortly after the trio is seen on camera at 7-Eleven, they're then seen leaving, heading toward a nearby bridge.
After a few minutes, all three together walked to a bridge where ultimately Jocelyn was murdered.
According to court documents, the suspects violated Jocelyn near this bridge for hours before killing her. They later threw her body in the nearby bayou. When Jocelyn's body was recovered, she wasn't wearing pants. There's no security video of this that we know of, but we do know the suspects were caught on camera after they allegedly committed the crime.
Suspects continue south towards their residence after leaving Jocelyn there.
One day after Jocelyn's body was recovered on Tuesday, June 18th, investigators released these images asking the public if they recognized the men.
We were able to find video and trace the movements of our suspects and of Jocelyn, and all the way to the point of where she was murdered and left in a bayou in the water.
By Wednesday, June 19th, the persons of interest were identified as 21-year-old Johan Jose Rangel Martinez and 26-year-old Franklin Jose Peña Ramos. The next day, on Thursday, June 20th, both suspects were arrested.
Okay, let me give you some updated information that I've learned about these two. You know, they entered into the country illegally from Venezuela a month before. They both were put on GPS monitors and they were let go. They gave a report to come back to a court date, and they ended up in the Houston area. They were in their apartments a month before this crime happened. So they weren't in the area very long. It's just sad and tragic that, you know, illegally coming over and committing a crime and acting like it's no big deal. Look at that guy. That's the one that supposedly sexually assaulted her and strangled her and killed her. The other one denying any kind of involvement. But he was there. He didn't stop it. So he just as negligent as this guy.
The suspects are now facing charges of capital murder, one being Johan Jose Rangel Martinez, the second male being Franklin Jose Peña Ramos.
We've since learned Houston police and SWAT team members arrived at the suspect's apartment complex at about 4 o'clock in the morning. They called out to the suspects on a loudspeaker, but they didn't come out. That's when officials approached their apartment on the second floor. And at this point, one of the suspects even tried to jump from the balcony. Basically, these two men were trying to evade arrest. Eventually, they were taken into custody. But could any of those things be brought in as part of the case, I guess, that these two men were trying to escape when the SWAT team?
Let me tell you how they were caught. Supposedly, they have a roommate, and they were all sitting in the living room watching the news. So a bulletin comes across the news and their faces are on the news. The roommate sees their faces flash across the TV. He acts nonchalantly because he didn't want to start any trouble or even, you know, get any kind of stuff started because he is the roommate. Well, he texts a cousin of his from Laredo. Hey, these guys that murdered this little girl are my roommates. So the cousin contacts Houston authorities. The roommate makes up an excuse to leave the house, and that's when SWAT comes in and apprehends these two.
Team arrived?
Yeah, it could be admissible if they prove that all they have to prove is that they should have been aware that it was law enforcement, they were ordered, and then they tried to elude police. Eluding police is a criminal statute. That's a criminal violation if you elude the police. And when you use the word that they were there with the SWAT team, I mean, it's pretty tough not to know that the SWAT team isn't law enforcement when they come, because they usually have police on their shirts, things of that nature, weapons out. So the very fact that someone ran could be an eluding of police.
When he was taken into custody, investigators noticed something curious on Martinez Rangel's arms. There are also reports that one of the suspects has scratches up and down his arms, almost as if somebody was trying to defend themselves. Is that something that investigators would also take pictures of, note for the prosecution?
Absolutely. And they would also go look at the person who was murdered, check their fingernails to see if they can have any DNA in those fingernails that would match the alleged defendant in this case.
The next day, on Friday, June 21st, there was a candlelight vigil to celebrate Jocelyn's life. It was the same day that we learned both suspects are illegal immigrants. Martinez Rangel was arrested on March 14th, and Peña Ramos was arrested on May 28th. Both men were arrested near El Paso, Texas, and originally from Venezuela. We also know that both of these men had previously been arrested in the weeks leading up to Jocelyn's murder because they are illegally in the country. How does that play into this case?
That's something we'd have to look at a little closer to see it in the context of all the evidence. You can't just presume because someone was on release for another offense, a nonviolent offense, that they caused a violent offense here. However, the very fact that they were on release, they had responsibility to report back to immigration, things of that nature, and they committed a crime, it's going to hurt them in that case as well.
On Monday, June 24th, Peña Ramos made his initial appearance in court, and the next day, on Tuesday, June 25th, Martinez Rangel appeared. Earlier this week, both suspects made their initial appearance in court, and the district attorney asked the judge for a $1 million bond, but the judge returned $10 million bond for each of the suspects, so I guess $20 million total. Are you surprised by that huge number?
No, not at all, because basically they're saying they shouldn't be out. They're a danger to the most importantly on the probable cause, they're a danger to the community. And even worse is they were on release for not being in this country legally for another violation of law. And now they gave at least enough evidence of probable cause to believe they committed this murder and rape.
To understand this bond better, we sat down with Nicole DeBoard, a former prosecutor and criminal defense attorney based in the same city where Jocelyn was murdered.
So in Texas, which a lot of people find surprising unless the death penalty is on the table, a person is absolutely entitled to bond in a case. It doesn't have to be a low bond, but they're entitled to bond for a charge that doesn't involve the death penalty. And in this circumstance, you know, you can imagine that the court will want to set a very high bond. But when you have an immigration issue on the side, these suspects, in other words, are thought to have violated immigration laws, even with a bond, even if these suspects were able to make the bond that the judge is forced by law to have to set, again, it will likely be very high. They probably would not be released anyway because they would have what we call an immigration hold, or they would be forced to remain in custody as the case is pending, because immigration also will want to ensure that these individuals do not leave to where they cannot be found and then answer to the court for these crimes.
So now they have this $10 million bond. Let's say magically they're able to pay this. But they're also now facing immigration holds because they had previously been arrested and had an offense there. How does all of that work? Are they just permanently on the immigration holds until it's investigated?
Well, that's what the immigration has to look at, and what their release was. We have to see from immigration. But yeah, just because they satisfy the one case doesn't mean they satisfy the other. They still have the hold on immigration. And immigration has to look back at where it's at.
And according to lead prosecutor Megan Long, Martinez Rangel actually researched leaving the U.S. after Jocelyn's murder.
The big difference was that we have gotten into Martinez Rangel's phone and found evidence that he was searching for ways to leave the country once his image was released to the media.
Korbanek says this information could be brought in should the cases go to trial, but it would take some legwork.
Items like this are very fact sensitive. So you have to put together more things to show that there's some sort of connection. You just can't randomly do it. without some probable cause to be investigating, especially phones and things of that nature that have a lot of private facts and private information in them.
What about witness testimony? So I know that one of the suspect's neighbors came forward to investigators and said, yeah, he actually talked to me and said, I did something bad. I'm planning to leave the country. Could that testimony be used?
Absolutely. That could be consciousness of guilt. It could be an admission. When you say something to someone who's not in law enforcement, you don't have it's not a Fifth Amendment kind of issue. And before you speak to law enforcement, you're advised of your Fifth Amendment right. Someone who just comes out and admits something to someone who's not in the investigation, or it could be used against you if you admit it to someone who is part of the investigation, but it's not as strong as a proof you have to have it admissible if you said it to your neighbor or someone who's not involved in the investigation.
But for now, as the investigation continues to pick up steam, both suspects are being held in the Harris County Detention Center. Obviously, investigators are taking meticulous notes, details, getting every bit of evidence that they can. But now we have these two defendants who are being held. And I'm wondering, at that point, can investigators take their DNA because right now they're being detained, or do they still have to voluntarily give it over?
Yeah, I'm not.
Well, things have changed since this video came out. So this is like probably last week or the week before. Things have changed since this came out. That's why I'm going to play two other videos that this other YouTuber has made. And let me go ahead and give his name before I forget. It's the Dynamic Reason channel. His name is Steve. If you haven't checked that out, go and give Steve a look. And if you like what he does, give him some likes and, even subscribe if you enjoy his content. He's boots on the ground with this, so I'm going to use his stuff here in a minute to show you exactly where he went down there and what he saw. And he's going to show you the site where the murder happened. So let's continue watching this. There is updated information, so everything he's saying right now has definitely changed.
Sure on what exactly the criminal procedures are there, but I'm pretty sure that all they need is some probable cause. I mean, when you take body DNA testing, things like that, that's not a Fifth Amendment issue. You're not speaking. The Fifth Amendment is you don't speak in any way that can incriminate you. But if there's physical evidence and they could show probable cause, all they need is a court order, because they're just taking, it's like fingerprints, things of that nature. So they're going to be taking bodily to see if there was sperm here. Did sperm match their DNA testing and things of that nature? And that would be very strong evidence for the government.
As far as the charges, DeBoard explains why the suspects were charged with capital murder.
So in Texas, capital murder, if there's an adult murder, but there are not other circumstances present, it may not rise to the level of being a capital murder. Capital murder in Texas usually requires, and it depends on.
Steve's channel is called the Dynamic Reason Channel. Dynamic Reason Channel. The Dynamic Reason Channel.
On the age of the victim, and in this case it was a child, which makes it fall into the capital murder category. But if it's an adult, I say just a murder, which is obviously the most horrific crime. It may not be a capital murder, and so you have different punishment ranges for different types of murders. So a murder in Texas that is not attached to, say, a robbery or to a sexual assault, those cases are prosecuted under a different punishment scheme and under a different statute. But because in this case, the complainant, the decedent, is a child, then what we're dealing with based on the statute is the capital murder statute, of course, which has a different punishment range.
At a press conference after the suspect's arrests, Harris County District Attorney Kim Ogg told reporters if tests showed that Jocelyn was sexually assaulted, the suspects could face the death penalty.
Look forward to the results of the tests that are being run on the evidence in the case. And should those tests produce evidence that would support a charge of sexual assault, or should other evidence be brought forward that supports a charge of kidnapping, Both underlying offenses would make this capital murder and these individuals death penalty eligible.
Just the crime itself, because the victim is 12 years old, it automatically means capital murder that both of these suspects are charged with. And the DA down in Harris County said if there's more factors, we might move forward with the death penalty. One of the things they were talking about is sexual assault, and we've since learned that Jocelyn was sexually assaulted. So what do you think is going through prosecutors' minds as they're determining whether they should move forward with the death penalty?
Well, how dangerous these defendants are to the public if they ever get out of jail, things of that nature. Will they be repeat offenders? And just quite frankly, I think the hardest thing they're looking at is the nature of the violence and the disrespect for life on so many different levels.
Prosecutors say it will be a while before they determine whether to seek the death penalty.
Make determinations about whether or not we're going to seek death very carefully. We have a committee. It is not a thumbs up or thumbs down decision by the elected DA like it used to be. I changed that. And the committee looks at the evidence, including evidence presented by the defense, especially if it has to do with mental illness or intellectual disability.
You're right about that. I mean, kidnapping alone is a crime, you know. It's like I said, things have changed since this press conferences came out, so I think y'all will like how it turned out.
Of any kind. We have to take that into consideration. And so it's a lengthy process to decide what is and is not an appropriate case to seek death on.
Meanwhile, the suspects are being charged as co-defendants, something DeBoard explains in more detail.
In state court in Texas, it is often unusual for defendants to be tried together because even though you see in many places, including federal court, oftentimes many co-defendants are tried during the same trial at the same time. The standards in Texas are a little bit different. The courts are very cautious, which really is a good thing. You want each person who is accused to be tried for their own conduct, their own involvement, not whatever lengthy criminal record your co-defendant might have, whatever other personal problems your co-defendant might have. You want to make sure that the person who's actually on trial is being tried for who they are and what they've done and not what somebody else may have done or who they were hanging around with. And so it's likely that even though they're co-defendants, that these trials will be had not at the same time, but one after the other.
And we have these two men who are both charged with the same crime here. But is it possible that one person might have done more than another? I mean, right now they're co-defendants, but I mean, it's hard to say it was 50-50 between the two of them. Does that make things more complicated?
Well, it could also make things more easy for the government, quite frankly. And what I mean by that is if one of those persons were not involved at all, they were just hanging out and this all of a sudden happened unexpectedly to them, I'm pretty sure that they would be looking to the government and say, listen, I can tell you exactly what happened, but you've got to give me a better deal here. I'm not looking at a death penalty or life, but I could give you some information if it keeps me out of jail or things of that nature, or a lesser sentence, or I am innocent and I'm willing to cooperate with you because I had nothing to do with this. This got out of control and here's how. So it could be very beneficial to that person.
Going off that, do you think it's likely that these two suspects turn on each other?
It's always a potential that it could happen. You just don't know, though, if the one person, if both, we don't know if both people did it, but if, say, it was like we talked about hypothetically, one was the real person who committed everything, that other person may say, wait a minute, if I rat him out and give information, am I going to be safe? We don't know if there was connection here to organized crime, if they were here as part of a gang from another country or things of that nature. So it'll be interesting to see, but there's always that potential of having a cooperating witness.
Officials have already seen this a bit, saying Peña Ramos told investigators it was Martinez Rangel who tied up Jocelyn and was on top of her. It was apparently also Martinez Rangel who suggested Jocelyn's body be thrown into the water to wash away some of the evidence. But even with this admission from Peña Ramos, there is still time for both suspects to deny any involvement. And we know the defendants, they are innocent until proven guilty. At this point, they've just been charged and are being held, but they're innocent until proven guilty. So if you are taking on their case and you're working to defend them, how do you combat such a violent charge?
Well, what you need to do is you need to see where the investigation goes. You need to sit in silence and see what the government can have in evidence, and will that evidence come to a place where it's proof beyond a reasonable doubt. Also, too, is you also have to take into consideration is, are they able to prove the murder charge? And if they're not, can they still prove lesser included offenses, things of that nature? So it's a
See right, excuse me. See right there, does she look like an adult to y'all? To me, she looks like a kid in every picture that I've seen. So, does she look like an adult to y'all?
very difficult case for the defense because of the fact that it's not something that happened in the middle of the day where you could say, yeah, I was with her, I had sex with her, but then I left. I don't know who did this or that. These are the kind of things that I'm sure are going through investigators' minds, saying, all right, here's what we're focused on. We have no other people that we need to investigate here because there was nobody else around.
In this case, what would lesser charges potentially be?
Well, it could be rape. It could be something of that nature. It could be the conspiracy of rape, things of that nature. Could be assault. Who knows?
From here, Korbanek says there's still investigative work to be done. Where do you think the investigation is headed from here?
Well, I think right now it's going to be a lot of forensics that it's going to be going into. It's going to be, I think, some blood testing, things of that nature to see if defendants were under the influence of any sort of controlled dangerous substance, alcohol, things of that nature. If there's any DNA matches found on anyone's body, whether it's the victims or the defendants, if they have each other's DNA on the bodies, that sort of is a lot of stronger evidence for the government. It seems like a simple case because there's so little people involved, but it is complicated without direct witnesses. And when you don't have direct witnesses, you have to rely on the scientific forensic type of evidence.
A funeral for Jocelyn was set for Thursday, June 27th, just 10 days after she was killed. Reporting for Law and Crime, I'm Sierra.
Okay, that was just giving you a brief summary of the case up until this point. So I know it's long-winded, and I know that there's a lot going on that maybe people don't understand or they want to move on from. I get it, but we got to find out at least what's going on in the case because not everybody has heard about this. So let's, this is a clip from the Dynamic Reason channel, and he was able to put this in there, and then we'll go into the boots on the ground portion.
2 men investigators say are in the country illegally from Venezuela are charged with capital murder in the death of Jocelyn Nungaray.
KPRC2's Corley Peel is live downtown outside the Harris County Courthouse with new details about how police tracked down those 2 men. Corley.
While both men were on the run, police received a large amount of tips, even from Pena's boss, who the men ran to for help. A $10 million bond and an ICE hold. Franklin Pena is staying locked up on his capital murder charge, a relief to 12-year-old Jocelyn Nungaray's family.
I'm thankful for the ruling today, the amount of bail that was set. I know for a fact they're not going anywhere.
Only KPRC2 was there as police took Pena and Johan Rangel Martinez into custody on Thursday, 3 days after Jocelyn was found strangled to death. Prosecutors say both men were looking for money to get out of town. They called Pena's boss at a local construction company.
Did he tell his boss what he allegedly did?
There's an understanding that something went wrong, someone got hurt, and someone was killed.
Did the boss notify police?
Yes, the boss came forward and spoke to the police.
Is that how they ultimately found out where they were?
that is one of the ways that the police were able to determine where they were and who the suspects were.
Investigators say Jocelyn snuck out of her family's apartment sometime after 10 p.m. on June 16th. Pena and Martinez had visited a local bar for hours. They eventually saw Jocelyn at a 7-Eleven and asked her for directions. Court records showed they lured Jocelyn to a bridge. Pena told authorities he tried to tell Martinez to stop, but Martinez put his arm around Jocelyn's neck and covered her mouth. Martinez allegedly tied Jocelyn up and told Pena to put her body in the water to remove any DNA. She was found without her pants and cuts on her body.
I just want people to remember, I know this is a very high profile case, but she was still my firstborn.
And Border Patrol released both men on their own recognizance after they were arrested near El Paso earlier this year. And Jocelyn's grandfather is calling on leaders to have stronger immigration laws and to change those immigration laws. And this tragedy has even sparked a debate on immigration across the U.S. And even President Joe Biden and former President Donald Trump have been weighing in on this tragedy. Both released statements over the weekend, and we have their statements on click2houston.com. Martinez has his arraignment tomorrow morning, and we will be there.
Okay. So that was basically a rundown over what had gone on up until that point. And this is Steve driving around with boots on the ground. So I haven't watched this whole video, but I watched most of his stuff, and it's pretty. He explains very well what's going on. So let's watch Steve go to work.
All right, guys, check it out. I was over here about 20 minutes prior to me filming this for you guys, and this whole place back here still had police and detectives combing the parking lot. They were parked where this white car is at. So what I'm gonna do is, this is where she lived. We're going to retrace the steps of the path that she took on her way to this 7-Eleven, so-called, that she was going to. I got to tell you guys, this is a rough area over here. You know what I mean? I ain't got my tripod hooked up, so y'all gonna have to hold y'all in my hand, so you know what it is when it's live and uncut. Yeah, this is a rough spot over here. Now, this corner store must have been closed, because, I mean, as you can see, it's a lot of people hanging out here at night, you know, hood. So a lot of times, these places like this, they close down early, or they close at a certain time. Now, she went this way. This is where the street lights are. Back here, this is like a wooded area. Now, this bridge that we're going over, this is Greens Bayou. Now, I'm going to show you guys something. And you've seen she walked from those apartments from that corner where that corner store was, the front of the apartments, or to the right of that store. Now, she goes up. Now, it looks like it's far, but it's not. Now, when we turn right here, you'll see the 7-Eleven. You guys can see the 7-Eleven up there, which we're going to now. If you go and look at the news articles and the surveillance footage from the 7-Eleven, you'll notice the ice machine where the snapshot was taken of Jocelyn Nungaray with the one guy in the pink shirt. Now, they haven't identified these guys. We don't know the difference between the guys. You know, who's who, who's the 26-year-old and who's the 21-year-old. But this is the 7-Eleven over here. I'm going to pull into the driveway, and you'll see the ice machine where the picture was taken, and the camera that's in that very corner of the top of the partition roof under the 7-Eleven sign. This is an unfortunate thing for somebody to do this to a kid. I mean, granted, she shouldn't have been out here, even though this is a well-lit area. This is not an area you go walking by yourself at. This is over here by the Greens Point area, which has a reputation of in its own. So, I mean, that looked like from where she came from, that's about a 15-minute walk from her apartments all the way up here to this 7-Eleven. I was out here earlier, and I had my work clothes on. I didn't have my lav mic and all of that, and it would have been terrible footage. So I decided to run home, get dressed, and come back out here and show you guys this. But I'm gonna show you some amazing things today. We're gonna go right to the crime scene where the body was at and everything. I'm gonna take you guys with me. Now we're pulling this parking lot to 7-Eleven real fast. You see the ice machine? Now we'll pull in here, right? Now pull up. This is right where the ice machine is. Now, if you look at the ice machine, you look a little bit above the ice machine where it says private property, you'll see that little bubble camera over top where the ready ice is. Now, this is the way she came. When she left this way. Now, I'm gonna back up and park where the media is at because I got my media press pass in case the police come up and ask what we doing. But it looks like there's some other reporters out here, and we'll pull over. I'll see where they from. A lot of times they don't want you to put the camera on them. See, there's some other members of the press out here, and okay, this is a Spanish channel. This lady was out here before. She's with Telemundo. All right, let me flip this camera real quick. All right, guys, I just flipped the camera. I'm out here at the actual crime scene. I'm going to take you guys over here, and I'm going to show you something that's interesting. But I parked in this parking lot, and I'm going to show you where the cute, smart, safe self-storage was at, and all of this stuff. And I'll show you exactly where the lady found her and which direction she was coming from. So stay tuned. Guys, behind me, you see the 7-Eleven that young Jocelyn Nungaray was at. This is the path that she followed. I guess this was a shortcut because over this way, if you look, you'll see the road where the apartments was at. Now, her apartments are down further, not at these ones, but the next one's down across the street. Now, this is Kirkendall, where the footage of her and the guy was at. She came from that way where the Walgreens was. She came up this street, coming this way. Now, when she left and came back, I guess because it squares off and heads back. See, remember the cube storage? It squares off and comes back. She went this way. She crossed the street here where we're about to walk now, and I'll show you. Check this out. All right, guys, we're walking the same path she walked. I guess when she crossed the street outside of the parking lot where the 7-Eleven was at. Now coming up, let's cross the street before we get hit. We're walking up on the memorial that they have out there for this young lady. I'll show that to you guys real quick. Earlier when I was over here, they still have the media over here. Earlier when I was over here, they had about 40 people out here. Just all looking over the bridge and stuff. What you're looking at now, that guy, that's the cameraman and stuff, and the other dude that's reporting, they're from Newsweek. They came all the way from LA. I was talking to him earlier. He gave me some good information about what to do at crime scenes and what to look for. And I'll share that with you guys tonight on the live stream. But coming over, I'm gonna keep my voice down and be respectful because they're doing the view. This is the memorial they have out here for her. So they wrote "Rest in Peace," painted it. And I want to show you guys something in a second. Now, this is where her body was at. The lady that found her was coming from this direction. Remember, she said she thought she saw something that was a mannequin? Her body was found out here. For her to come down this road and see her, she came down and she had to see her right there. You got it? You guys good?
Just one more.
Okay, you gonna take one more take? All right. Yeah, because I'm going to take you down here where the crime scene is. I'm going to show you something. These people from News Nation, guys, they were talking to me and telling me, giving me information about what to look for at crime scenes. Now, if you go over here, I'm going to just walk over here because he's taking another take. I want to be in his shot. If you look down here, you see the surgical mask? It was police over here early and they were picking up the gloves and stuff. I guess they came back to clean up the crime scene. There were gloves and stuff all down here where she was found. You know, the police ain't gonna talk to nobody, but I'm gonna show you something when we get a little bit of time. Like, I'm gonna walk across this bridge. I'm gonna stand here and wait for this guy to finish doing what he's doing. You know, being respectful. But check this out. You go across here, this bridge where she was headed home. Because if you look up there, you see that gentleman walking, you see that yellow sign? I'm assuming either this street here, in fact, I'm sure it was this street. I don't know what this street is. She would turn down this street, walking with those guys to head back to the house. Because, I mean, it's only the next block over. But I'm going to show you something. I'm going to take you guys, take you down there. If you take a look, this is where they're recording at, right? And they're wrapping up now. Look under there. It's like some type of encampment. Now they're wrapping up now, so we're going to go back over there. And I'm going to take you down there where her body was found. See the rubber gloves? I don't know if that was from the police, but yeah, they're packing up. Yeah, usually when media's out here, you want to, you know, they're doing a job and they're recording just like me. I don't want to be respectful. This is a sad thing, man. This girl who does this type of stuff, man? There's some monsters just all over the place, not just in Houston, all over. Who does this to a 12-year-old girl? Here's the memorial. See, they have candles out here. People are still bringing flowers. So tonight, the vigil will be here tonight at 7 o'clock. And most likely, this thing will probably be filled up by the, because a lot of people were driving by earlier and they were saying they were coming back to bring some stuff. So, but here, let's step down here. This is where her body was found, guys. And trust me, it's creepy down here. I'm not gonna be down here this too long. Got chicken wire down here. Go down here.
So as you heard him say, they were walking across the street toward this bridge. And across the street, and this is the area where the SA took place, sexual assault took place, the murder took place, and this is the area where they found the body in the water.
I want you guys to see something. It's some type of encampment. So I don't know if they took her under here or what, but this is some sketchy stuff. Now her body was found here. And then this is here. So I don't know what was going on. People walk this bridge all the time. This is the hood, so it's always people walking. He said this young lady died of strangulation, man. This is a sickening crime. Look at this under here. This creepy ass stuff. This is wild. Somebody was living under here for a while. They got sheets up. I'm trying to scour the ground to see if I see anything out of the, see, it was gloves down here and stuff before. They took all of that. I should have recorded at least some B-roll footage. Yeah, they got a fishing rod down here. They got all kind of stuff. When they discovered her body, said she was down here. This is sickening. Who would come down here in the dark? How cruel can you be? And let me get out of here, man. This is too much. When the surgical mask stay at. They need to take these dudes and drag them out in the street and let the public tear them apart. That's sickening. You pull somebody up under the bridge like a damn troll. Getting angry. This is stupidness. There's some heartless people out here. They said these people was only in them apartments for a month. So I don't know if they just got here from Venezuela or they came from another place. But I mean, come on, man.
Yeah, I heard it mentioned also that since they hadn't been there very long, maybe they were all living under that encampment for a while until the apartment came open. And you're right, the grass does look freshly cut, but I don't know if how high it would have been, if it would have concealed the situation, or they actually took her under the bridge and did what they did. This is a sad case.
A lot of people came out, showed support for this young lady and her family. I think they got a GoFundMe up. I'll put that in the description in the box below if I can find it, if it's still up. But I mean, to do this to somebody, man, a 12-year-old girl, it's unacceptable. We walk back across the street. Some more media. That's the same lady from Telemundo. She gets some more footage. Yeah, that's the 7-Eleven, guys. She left from. She came from across the street from that way, coming this way. So
they had her under that bridge for 2 hours. 2 hours. So you know that, she was either, they said they tied her up and, gagged her mouth or whatever, or was holding his hand over her mouth or whatever. Either way, nobody heard or saw anything. And once again, the proximity is close to where she was abducted. It's within walking distance. People are so brazen these days, I swear.
I think what they were talking about, I think all of it was true. And I'll break it down to you when I get over here by this car. I don't want to be doing a news report in the middle of the island between the roads. But I believe, guys, what they said was true. She snuck out to go to 7-Eleven because the store by her house was closed. Didn't tell nobody. Came across these guys because they said on Kirkendall, they came from a restaurant. Let's walk up here real fast and see if it's a restaurant, Spanish restaurant or something up here, some type of restaurant in this strip mall over here, or a little bit down the street because there's a Motel 6. That's the highway, I-45 right there. It is hot out here today. All right, it's a Cajun City Wings and Seafood straight ahead. So Mr. Car Wash that way, so there's nothing down there. Heading this way, it's a Sonic. So I don't know where it's coming from. But either way, that's the ice machine. She came this path, walked across the street, and that's the bridge where she subsequently lost her life. Tragic. All right, guys, we're back in the car. What did you think? She came this way. I'm going to take you down this little side street that would get her back, that I think would get her back to where she was living at. Now, I'm going to tell you this real quick. She may have been familiar with the people, from a facial standpoint, knowing them in the neighborhood, from what neighbors were saying, these guys would hang out, on the balcony and hang out. So she might have recognized their faces and didn't think anything of it with walking back with them. They were speaking to her, so on and so forth. She probably, didn't think anything would be wrong. And why should she? She's 12 years old. She's not out here looking for trouble. She's just going home. And it might have felt safe walking with 2 adult men. Either way, man, she was trusting. They convinced her, you know, that they were safe and walked with her back, and we see what happened. But I'm gonna turn around. I'm gonna turn this camera around, and we're gonna run that route back to the apartments and see how it looks back there. Let's back on out and see where that road leads. That's unfortunate, man. Who does that? It's dangerous out here. You pull somebody under a bridge in the dark. It's a light right there. It's a street light right there, and they do that. It's like people come from other countries, man, where they don't have respect for women or children, and there's a lot of lawlessness and corrupt police, and, you know, a lot of people's rights aren't really protected. That's why these people leave these places. They come over here and bring the same bullshit they was trying to escape with to another country. That's sad. This is North. Let me see the street. This street is North Borough Drive. And she was walking back here, man. See, like, that's the sidewalk. I would not walk back here at night. I don't care how lit it is. All these wild creatures and stuff. Now, these apartments over here were the apartments you just seen that I pointed to back over at the other place. Now, coming down here, some low-income apartments over here. Take a look. That one's burned down. Coming back up to here, we should run into that corner store. Yep, that's the corner store right there. So she was going to walk in the square, or she might have left this way. I think she left from this way. This is Canfield Lakes where she lived. She walked this way. So that's the corner store. She didn't walk straight up. She hung this left and went up there through that dark-ass road. She was going to come back, because that's the easiest path. So she didn't walk in the square. She came out of the apartments and walked straight up, made a left, made a right. That's where I recorded from. That's what she did. And it cost her life. Guys, I hope you liked the video. I'm Stock Market Steve for the Dynamic Reason channel. As always, like, comment, share, and subscribe. It's an unfortunate thing, man. This is just a lesson to you to keep your children safe and keep them close to you.
Y'all give it up for Steve from the Dynamic Reason channel. Thank you so much for being boots on the ground, and thank you for doing a wonderful job, Steve. If you happen to watch this video, send it to people over to check out your stuff, man. I agree. You do a great job. Keep it up, man. Stay safe out there. So what do y'all think, guys? I mean, that's just terrible. Now that we know more information about it, because the way they made it sound very early on is they were just walking by and they intersected with her walking to the 7-Eleven. But now we know all the details. We know that they were at the Cantina, which is basically a restaurant/bar, drinking. They intersected, they walked probably 2.5 miles down south, heading toward their apartment, and they ran into Jocelyn. She was just texting her boyfriend, probably getting a drink from the 7-Eleven. Next thing you know, all this cost her life. I wouldn't blame the mother. I wouldn't blame the grandmother. I wouldn't blame the brother. I mean, because you never know when you're asleep when your kid's going to sneak out. I mean, I don't know. I don't know what to think on that. I mean, because I used to sneak out also. My mom never knew it. Come back in, she was none the wiser. But it's just so sad that these individuals did this to her in such a close proximity to that 7-Eleven. I mean, it's not even a mile down the road. If you guys watch this on replay, please hit the like button. Please hit the subscribe button if you like the content. Please go pay Steve a visit. And you guys in chat, thank you so much for spending this hour with me. Y'all have a happy 4th of July. Be safe out there. Be hyper vigilant. And beware of your surroundings. I'll see you again on Friday night around 7 Central. I'm going to be doing kind of a debunking a little bit on the Idaho 4 case regarding gang activity. It should be interesting. Y'all, if you're in the area, stop on by, hang out for a while, or hang out during the whole time. Y'all have a wonderful day, and I'll catch y'all later.